What's up, everybody? This is Christian Brindle. This is the Everything Medicare Podcast, and today I have a very, very exciting guest, and I've been really looking forward to this episode. I'm interviewing Eric Fierro, who's a very, very accomplished, knowledgeable, friendly with his time to come on and share info with us. Just everything that you want to look for in someone that's an expert in the Medicare industry. Eric got his license back in 2004. He started in the Medicare industry in 2006. And Eric runs a Medicare-centered call center in Arizona. Eric trains agents all over the industry. He has a very, very influential training platform in Medicare Supplement University. Isn't that right, Eric?
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, I'm just really excited to have this conversation. I think the audience is going to benefit from it tremendously from someone of your experience. So, Eric, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian, for having me on. I'm really excited to get an opportunity to share a little bit about my story and experience here on your show.
Definitely. Well, we're all excited to hear about it. You know, it's always a treat when we get to talk to someone that's as accomplished as you are. Let's start out, Eric, by talk a little bit about your story and your background. How did you get into the insurance industry, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I didn't necessarily intend to get into the insurance industry, but I've always been one of those guys that's trying to always be a forward thinker, trying to always look ahead, trying to make my plan as far out as possible and then execute. I actually met my wife when I was 15 in high school sweetheart, and I remember after a year thinking, I want to marry this girl. And so, with that's where I started to formulate my plan. I knew I couldn't get married at 16, so I just said, okay, what's next? Next steps were, let's graduate high school, then let's go to college and get done with that as quickly as possible so I can get a good job, marry my wife, and start a family. And that was the plan. So I actually after I graduated high school, I went to a technical college because I wanted to get done faster. It was more accelerated, but we would have to go longer hours and be a lot more focused, and I didn't care. I just wanted to get it done so that I can get into a job that paid so that I can then marry my wife. And after I graduated college, I wasn't actually able to get a job in the field I was in, which was in computer networking, which was a big letdown to go pay all that money for college and then not be able to get a job anywhere. They all wanted 5 years experience. They all wanted they wanted me to have a bunch of other certifications on top of that. And so I was frustrated. I really was frustrated because I spent all this time. I had this plan, and now my plan is getting derailed, and I still want to marry my wife. After that, I basically got a job at Bank of America. I remember it was the first place I went to was Bank of America, and I thought to myself, I'm going to start out as a teller, and after putting in a little bit of time, I'm going to work my way up the ladder and get into a position where I can now apply to be in computer networking department. Well, I put in some time, and that still didn't work. Every time that I interviewed, which was, I think, 3 times, they all said the same thing, 5 years experience. So here's the catch-22. If nobody wants to hire me, how am I going to get experience? I mean, I can't just go out there and do this for free everywhere.
Right.
So I kind of came up against the wall, but at the same time, now my wife and I had already moved forward with deciding to get married and planning the whole process. So I said, okay, I got to get out of the teller position and now do something else within this company that can make me more money. Well, fortunately, there was an opening in the mortgage department, and so I jumped over into mortgages and started doing that, and I really did enjoy it, but it was getting a little more difficult at the time. We were kind of, we were going to look at having to potentially move, which is an issue that I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have to move because I love being close to my family. So I just decided I needed to go out and start looking, and it was funny that my wife at the same time was working at a restaurant called Paradise Bakery. I don't know if you've heard of them. They turned it into you've heard of it. Okay. So yeah, she was working there, and somebody approached her from a company called Primerica.
Oh, of course.
And so,
of course,
Primerica came up and said, "Oh, you did such a great job with servicing us, this and that. I have an opportunity for you if you'd like to come. It would be an amazing opportunity. It's in the insurance industry, and if you have a husband, bring him along." So my wife comes home and tells me about this, and it sounded real good. So we went to this meeting, and at this meeting, they sold us this amazing dream, right? That's a dream that you can do this and that, and you can have this amazing life helping people. And it ended up not really being the case. So it found out it was like a multi-level marketing situation, which, again, that's fine for those who are in it, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But I did have to reevaluate at that moment and kind of reassess what I wanted to do. And here are the things that kind of came down to as to why I ended up in the insurance industry. First, I wanted to be in a position where I could talk about something that actually helps people. That was the number one thing that led the whole drive towards getting into insurance. I wanted to be doing something that actually helps people, where I wouldn't feel weird about talking or offering any type of product that I didn't myself believe in. Mm-hmm. So that was the very first thing. The second thing is that I wanted to be in an industry that I felt was recession-proof, because I've seen it before, and I've seen how it affected people whenever recessions hit. My parents both worked for an amazing company, and it's a really large corporation, but with the seasons, as it goes up, they do mass hirings. As it goes down, they do mass firings. And I just didn't want to be in a position where I'm always worried about, am I going to lose my job? Okay?
Right.
So
right.
I wanted something more recession-proof. And then the last thing is that I didn't want to have to climb corporate ladders in order to advance in what I'm doing. I felt like if I was going to be an expert at something, if I was going to excel at something, I didn't want anyone to be able to hinder me or hold me back from growth because of politics. And so when I took those three different things, insurance was a realm that I felt fit the bill for all of them, and specifically Medicare. So that's when, I decided I wanted to go that route, and I actually had a friend who was already in the business, and he got me an opportunity to start getting in front of seniors who were looking for some help. And in fact, I actually was helping them out speaking Spanish first, because the people who we were getting requests for information were from Spanish speakers, which is why my buddy thought of me. He's like, well, you know Spanish. Why don't you come and try this? So that's exactly what I ended up doing. Is I started in Spanish, and then I transitioned into English, and it was just, to me, an amazing thing, because what I found is that anytime I got to sit down to help somebody, talking about where they had risks, where they had exposure financially, and I talked about the product and how they could help them, I felt so good, but I felt even better because in the midst of talking about all that, I love building relationships with people, and I love talking to seniors about their lives. I love hearing their wisdom, and so many of them are so willing to share wisdom about life that I'm one of those people, I take that stuff seriously. I don't take it for granted, and I really actually try to apply and adhere to different advice that I get from seniors who've seen things and lived things that I still haven't lived, And that's where I found such a great pleasure in this market, in the Medicare market, because of it fit the bill in terms of what I was looking for a career potential, and it also fit the bill in terms of just feeling really good about what I do from a relational standpoint and a business standpoint.
Well, I love it. I mean, and I think for so many of us, that end up having long, successful careers in the insurance industry, that's what it ends up being about at the end of the day. It's relationship building. You get to know your clients, you get to know your customers, you get to, have long-lasting relationships with them, and you have it be a positive impact in their lives, And I think for so many of us, that has a lot to do with it. I mean, I love that approach and that mindset. And it's funny you bring up Primerica, because I've seen a trend that so many people in the insurance industry started their journey with Primerica, or A.L. Williams, if you go back far enough when they were called that. I'm going to be talking to Nick Williams next week, the Medicare millionaire, and I know that's where he got hit. That's the first exposure he had to insurance. And then I don't know how much you know about my story, but I grew up around the insurance industry. My dad's a long time pioneer in the Medicare industry here in my state in Utah, and that's where he got his start. He actually was an agent for A.L. Williams back before they were Primerica, and that's where he started. So it's just it's so fascinating to when I talk to people in the industry, and so many people, that's where they got their start.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. It is funny. I mean, I'll give them credit to that they it may not work out for people sticking around long with them, but it does work out for those individuals who decided that insurance is still a good avenue, even if it's not with Primerica.
Yeah, launching careers, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Eric, let's transition into this. So, like I mentioned earlier, so you run a call center that works with people on Medicare primarily over the phone. You've worked with a lot of people over the years on Medicare. As I'm sure you're aware of, there's been a stereotype with seniors that, they need to have somebody in front of them. They need to have somebody face-to-face. And this is a question, I think, for the audience that's beneficiaries, but as well as the agents' audience that listens, because I know there's a good chunk of the audience that's agents as well. How were you able to see through the stereotype to know that your organization could be as effective over the phone?
Yeah, it's funny because I actually stumbled into offering the Medicare products over the phone. Traditionally, when I started, I would go drive house to house and be at the kitchen table to do my presentation, to do a needs analysis and figure out what a client would possibly need. But there came a time, or there was this one time, I can still remember so clearly, that this was, I think, in 2008, where a request for information came to me. And when I looked at it, it was about a 5-hour drive away from me. And
wow.
I was thinking to myself, and it was nearing the weekend, so I was like, I could make it up there for the weekend, but I had some other plans already, and I was like, I don't know if I should do this or if I should just actually maybe call up another agent and see if they want to try to help out this client or this potential client with providing them the information they're looking for. So then I had this idea, I said, well, maybe I can reschedule for just a little bit later. I'm just going to give the client a phone call and see. So I called the client, very nice lady, and we started having a conversation. Again, I love talking. They love talking. So we were having this conversation, and I let them know that, I'm about a 5-hour drive away. I don't know if I can make it up this weekend, but let me just quickly ask you, what's the most concerning thing you have going on about your Medicare coverage? And with that, it opened up the door to a conversation about what her concerns were and how I could fix them. And next thing you know, the same presentation that I would do when I'm across the kitchen table, I was doing it over the phone. And I think the reason that it flowed so naturally is because one of the things that I was always that I always do with my clients is I'm building relationships. This isn't just a transactional relationship. This is a friendly, long-term relationship that obviously includes me being their Medicare representative, their Medicare agent. But on top of that, I want to have a friendship, right? I want to know that I care. I want them to know I care about them and I care about their situation. And so because of that, I think it was so easy for me to just continue going through my whole presentation, answering her questions. And at the end of it, I just said, here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all your information on this application and I'm going to mail it to you. I'll mark where you need to sign it. You can you can review the application, sign it, and then send it back in the envelope I provide, and then we'll get you set up here by next month. And so I sent it out. Within a couple days, it was sent back, and that was it. I was able to fax that into the company, get the policy in place, and I was like, wow. I went through that whole thing, and I didn't have to drive 5 hours. And then I thought to myself, how many more people could I help if I didn't have to drive? If I didn't have to factor in all the drive time, how many more people could I help? And that's what spawned it for me. That's really where I decided I just wanted to try to do this as much as possible over the phone, because here's the other thing. There's a convenience factor. I don't know about you, but I grew up in an environment, like in my home, we weren't the cleanest people. Like I didn't have like the type of house where you could just walk into and it was always like ready to host people.
Right.
And maybe you did, but I sure didn't. And so I was the kind of person who was like, I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't want to have to clean up their home in order to have somebody come over for an hour. right?
Right,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's inconvenient. So convenience plays a huge part in this, and the more that people can see that this is something that can be done over the phone, and I know we're trending that way anyway, the more comfortable they become, and the more comfortable they are with you, because you're actually building a relationship and you're actually getting to know them. Well, then the easier it is for them to want to do business with you as well, whether it be over the phone or in person.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, things make changes, I mean, and if you look at other industries, for an example, doctors used to make house calls, not anymore. And I don't know how much that has to do with people not wanting them to come to the door, or the doctors just realized, hey, we don't have time to do this, and you can come to us, if it's really important. And, you see more and more medical professionals, doing more and more support for people over the phone and answering questions over the phone and things along that nature. It's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I think you're right. And our industry's probably transitioning to that way more and more. And I think a lot of it helps, this new generation of people on Medicare, the baby boomers, are so much more tech savvy than the generation before them. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of things that, social media platforms like Facebook and YouTube have really helped to propel even people who barely picked up technology 5 years ago. They could be in their 70s, they could be in their 80s, and they're picking it up quick because the whole idea behind these apps and these and different apps that you see on your cell phones is that they're supposed to be user-friendly. And so the more user-friendly that technology can be, the more we're going to see seniors adopt the different technologies. And so that's one of the things that I've always said that's been amazing about the iPhone is they were the pioneers in making mini computers super user-friendly.
It's true. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it, because an iPhone today is probably more powerful than, probably some of the strongest computers they had 15, 20 years ago, and everyone has one in their pocket. It's just amazing, the innovation.
Yeah, it was funny. I was actually listening to a podcast by Gary Vaynerchuk, and he said that it's crazy to think, and people don't even realize that the cell phone that they have in their pocket is a more powerful computer than the computer that Ronald Reagan had when he was running America in the 80s. Like, that's just insane to think about that.
Oh my gosh, you want to talk about perspective? That's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is. It's wild.
Eric, let me shift gears into this topic. What would you say? So, as someone that's worked with people, in person and over the phone quite a bit over the years, and you've trained agents and how to, properly help somebody that's on Medicare and, make the best use of what they have available to them. What would you say that your process is when it comes to working with someone on Medicare? What is some specific things that you look for?
Well, I mean, obviously the main, I would say the main concern, the majority, and I mean the vast majority of clients have when it comes to their coverage, is their finances. Most of the people we work with have a fixed income. And so what we need to do first and foremost is we need to look at how taxing is this plan that they currently have to their finances, and is there a way that we can relieve that pressure by moving them to either a similar plan or an identical plan through another carrier. So that's probably the very first thing that we do. Along the way, obviously, we're just like I mentioned earlier, we're always trying to build relationship at the same time. I think part of it is that they need to understand there's a stigma out there that so many agents are just in it for the money. And that's just not the case in our case, right? Our agency was built around the idea that we know there's a need out there to navigate the Medicare jungle, and we want to be at least one of the best fixes out there for that need. We want to be able to explain easily the Medicare program and how it works and where it leaves them exposed, and why there's a necessity for additional products that help to close those financial exposures. So I would say that's probably the number one thing we look for, is a financial situation when trying to help someone out. And we're completely honest. If somebody comes in and we see that they're already set up in the best plan, we say, you're already set up in the best plan. You're good to go. Maybe just check with us next year again, and we can see if anything's changed at that point. But other than that, I think that's probably the main factor, because I would say majority of the time it's either that or it's going to be health conditions and possibly even where you see a lot of big financial exposures with the prescription drugs that they're taking. So, but unfortunately, with talking about, prescription drug plans and Medicare Advantage plans, there's only a certain period of time throughout the year that they can make the decision to choose another plan, and that's during the annual election period that's coming up here between October 15th and December 7th.
Right. I think it's a really efficient process. A really efficient way of looking at it for people, and I think it's a method that people will find useful in making sure they have the best thing for them.
Yeah.
Eric, there are millions upon millions of people on Medicare in this country that are confused and lost on what they have or what they should be doing. Obviously, people like you and me, at least between the two of us, there's no way in the world we'll be able to help all of them. Although we'd love to be able to do that, but we do everything we can to help as many as possible. But if there's someone listening to this that maybe, let's say, they didn't have access to a good agent, they didn't have access, I can't imagine a situation where they wouldn't, but what advice would you have for someone that's listening that's on Medicare on how they can better understand what choices they have? What can they do?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of my biggest pieces of advice, and here's a funny thing, this is something that most seniors already know, is that time is precious. And it's funny how many times I come across clients before they became our client who spent hours and hours calling every individual insurance company that they could find in the Choosing a Medicare guidebook or in the Choosing a Medigap book. Like, they just spent hours and hours. So my biggest piece of advice is that you need to find a local or an agency like ourselves, a national agency or a local agency that is contracted to offer many different carriers so that they can alleviate that time that you're going to, that you would normally spend calling every individual carrier. They can alleviate that from you having to do that by basically telling you exactly what every carrier charges. Because here's the reality. If you don't know this already, it doesn't matter which insurance company you choose when it comes to Medicare supplements. A Plan F or a Plan G, from a benefit standpoint, will be identical regardless of the insurance company you choose. The only difference is the premium you're going to pay. So if you can talk to somebody who has access to all these different carriers and can sit down and in a 30-minute call give you the prices for everybody, you just saved yourself so much time and hassle and headache. And it's just, to me, you wouldn't believe how many people are out there still doing that, calling carrier after carrier after carrier. Part of it might be a trust factor, but again, that's why I say spend some time on the phone with whoever you're talking to, getting to know them a little bit. Hopefully they're going to reciprocate and they're trying to get to know you as well. But if you're not basically being helped by an agency that can offer several different products, you could potentially be paying more than you need to. Because if you run across an agent who can only offer one product, it is likely, it could be possible that one product they're offering is $40 to $50 a month higher than what you potentially could be paying with a different carrier had you spoken to a broker who can offer several products.
I love that answer. I think it's so important for people to understand how valuable a good agent can be for them. I work with a lot of people in Florida, mainly due to the fact that I lived there for a few years ago. And, it was a time in my life where I wanted to learn different markets, and it was mainly a career move. I wanted to learn more about the market there, and I'd never lived anywhere other than Utah, and it was something that I wanted to experience, my wife and I. So we went down there, and I worked there for a year, got licensed down there, kept taking care of all of my clients in Utah and my company, and but I have a lot of clients in Florida now due to that. And I still work with a lot of clients in Florida that come to me today. And you would not believe how often, I come across somebody that says, well, I talked to this other broker. He's local here where I am, but he only carries one or two companies, Whereas someone like myself, I'm on the other side of the country practically, and I know more about his market than he does.
Yeah. And and that's one of the things that I'd really want to point out to your audience, that the beauty of this industry is that I think there's, again, let's go back to another stigma, that people are I guess trained to believe that it is only good to work with a local person. But it's not true. I mean, with technology, I can call you from across the country, and if you really wanted to see me, we have several different platforms that we can easily set up so that you can see me on a camera, including that awesome little computer that's in your pocket. Almost all of these cell phones now that people have a camera on them, and you can either use Skype or you can use whatever integrated app they have in there to be able to just FaceTime somebody. And I think that that's really valuable for people to understand, is that you could be missing out on an opportunity to work with a really well-seasoned, well-versed, and also versatile insurance agent because you have this thought that you can only work with people who are local. I mean, we enroll thousands of clients every year, and we do it nationally, but it's because we can actually someone gives us the opportunity to show them that we know what we're talking about and we're there to help them and help to basically reduce their financial burden, then they end up in a much better position because of it.
I think it's a great point. It's not so much about where the agent is, it's a matter of how good is the agent, Yep. Let me shift gears into this, Eric. This is a question I've asked every single person I've interviewed on this podcast that's come on to talk about Medicare. Obviously, we've had some people come on to talk about final expense and life insurance and things like that. But now this is the age-old debate, that's been probably going on since most of us have been in the industry. And obviously, there's no clear-cut answer. It obviously always depends on a person's situation. But if you had to pick, do you lean more towards the Medicare supplement side of the pendulum or the Medicare Advantage plan side of the pendulum, and why?
So it's funny because I remember one time I was doing an advertisement and I said, a lot of people ask me that question, especially clients. So, well, what would you put your parents on? And so to answer that question, my father, my grandfather, my grandmother, all three of them I put on Medicare supplements. And I'll explain why. Because here's the thing. Medicare Advantage is obviously growing in terms of its popularity. And it really, the way that we know it as of today, it started in about 2006. And so I know that it's growing in popularity. And in fact, our agency offers it as well. Like we're full service. So we're going to offer the supplement side. We're going to offer the Advantage side. But personally, I always ask myself, what would I rather have if I could afford it? And I would always choose a Medicare supplement for several reasons. I'd like the idea of being able to use it pretty much in 97% of the physicians across the country. It's portable insurance, right? And that's, to me, a really appealing thing because as it is right now, I travel a lot. I can only imagine if I retire, I'm going to travel a lot more.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important for me to have insurance that's portable, easy to understand. I love the idea that if I, excuse me, let's say that I had a Medicare supplement plan G with my original Medicare. I love the idea that if something catastrophic happened, I would just need to present my Medicare card, my Medicare supplement card, and then pay my $185 deductible, and everything else that's Medicare approved is going to get taken care of, right? With the Medicare Advantage, I would have to really know how my plan is designed so that I can know what my co-payments, deductibles, co-insurance is going to be within the plan. And for just simplicity's sake, I like the idea of saying, hey, I'll pay you $120 a month, knowing that if something catastrophic happens, everything is good. So I think I prefer Medicare supplements when they can be afforded, but when we do have clients who really just are not in a position to afford that monthly premium for a supplement, then we look at Advantage as another option for sure.
Makes sense. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think, most brokers, most agents that, especially the ones I've talked to, most of them have a similar response. Most of them lean towards the Medicare supplement for the simplicity of it. And I think for seniors that can't be understated. Simple is usually better. And like you said earlier, it's all about it's the convenience factor as well.
It's also, and again, it goes back to most of the clients I talk to, their biggest concern is their financial situation. And with a Medicare supplement, you can forecast what your expenses are for the year with your health, because you just know you have to pay that premium and then that deductible if you had a plan G. If you had a plan F, you would have no deductible. But they can forecast it a lot better. With an Advantage plan, they may have low premium plans or zero premium plans, but if something happens, then they really can't forecast what that expenditure is going to be. They can know what their maximum out of pocket will be for the year, but that it might end up being more expensive than just paying for a monthly premium for a Medicare supplement. So that's another factor as well. It's just some people like the idea of being able to forecast their expenses, and some people are more willing to say, well, if it happens, I have that in savings, so it's whatever.
Right, absolutely. Eric, let's talk about the agent side of things just for a second. You have an online training program, like we mentioned, for agents called Medicare Supplement University. Why is it so important for agents to know what they're doing when they're working with someone on their Medicare? How significant is this for a person on Medicare that they might not realize?
Yeah, so, and I actually just rebranded it at the beginning of the month. I rebranded it to MedicareSalesUniversity.net.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, that's completely fine. I'm making that point because originally I wanted it to be a place where people could train and learn all about Medicare supplements, but it's since then evolved into much more than that. And so it's not only training on Medicare, it's training on Medicare supplements, Medicare Advantage, and pretty much any ancillary product that helps fill needs for seniors in the marketplace. And so because of that, I wanted to rebrand it to really be a better representative of what you'll find inside. And I think it's incredibly important because I have a passion for helping seniors, and I want it done right. And so I took the time, and I mean a lot of time, making sure that I was going to be an expert in the field. There's been a lot of agents that I ran across who they got a really short fly by the seat of your pants training that was not, I would say, I guess, an appropriate level of training to be out there talking about these products and helping seniors. And so with this university, it's a great way for seniors to know that if they go through it, they're going to be incredibly well educated on how Medicare works, the ins and outs, the different options, what to look out for, what not to. I mean, it's such an in-depth place to find such a vast amount of information that I think, again, it's basically 14 years of my brain dumped into this site. And so to me, it's incredibly important because anyone who's out there helping the senior population needs to do it well and needs to make sure that they are an expert in what they're talking about. It just because, and I only say that because I'm so passionate about it. This is my passion.
Well, I love it. You know, I've always preached on this platform specifically that, you know, people need to make sure they're working with a good agent. And the more good agents there are out there, the less you're going to hear stories of people, you know, being enrolled in something that's just a terrible fit for them, you know, or, you know, being enrolled in something that they could have gotten for half the price, you know, in comparison, or something like that, you know, or enrolling in a plan that doesn't cover half their medications when it didn't need to be that way, or something like that, you know. So I love that. I love the intention. I love the mission of it, and I just think it's a great thing that you do, not only for agents but for seniors too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So let's talk about Medicare going forward. Where do you see Medicare going in the next 10 years if you had to guess? Obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, but if you had to guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, honestly, we'll probably see... Well, let me preface it by saying this, okay? Because I think the popularity of Medicare is definitely going to rise because there's so many new seniors joining the Medicare program every single day, and it'll be like that for the next decade. Now, to kind of, and the reason I wanted to preface it is because also we've all known that, you know, America has been known as a land of opportunity. And people, whether you live in this country or outside of this country, you see America as a land of opportunity for the most part. Most people do. Well, insurance carriers are no different. They see this as an opportunity. So you will see more insurance carriers getting into the market because they see the opportunity that's here and that's going to be here for the next 10 years as far as its growth potential. because of how many seniors are joining every day. And that's not a bad thing, because as we all know, that if you have more competition, that always helps seniors to have lower rates or better benefits, whether it be supplements, whether it be Medicare Advantage. The competition from other insurance carriers who want your business, it will help to make better products. And that's what I'm excited about. So I see this as a good thing for not only agents like ourselves who are in the market and are looking to stay in the market to make a career out of it. I also see it as a good thing for seniors because they're going to have more options. And more options means potentially better coverage, and most likely better coverage to fit their specific situation in life, whatever that may be.
Makes sense. I agree completely. Last question, Eric. Is there a mistake that you see people on Medicare make that just drives you crazy? Is there something that you, and specifically, is it something that could be easily avoided?
Yeah, I think that I would say now, and I'm going to be careful saying this. So there's a lot of government literature that's out there regarding Medicare, and the literature about how it works is good. But then they also try to go and put information about different insurance carriers. They try to put premium information and all that stuff. And the seniors will read that and they'll kind of take it as gospel, right? Because it's a government literature. But almost always that information is outdated by the time it even goes to print. Because the industry changes so much in terms of their premiums, in terms of their benefits, in terms of the... Now, with Medicare supplements, benefits stay the same, but the premiums are always changing. With Medicare Advantage, normally on a yearly basis, the plans are always changing. So the biggest thing I want seniors to take away from this is that government literature is good for explaining the basics of how plans work. From there, the best thing you could do is, like I mentioned earlier, get in contact with an independent agent who offers several different products and several different carriers so that they can help you huge on a time-saving situation and get you in the best position possible for your situation.
I think it's a great point, because it's, people don't realize how quickly those things can change, and it might be accurate at the time of print, but like you said, the time they actually have it in their hands, it's outdated information. I don't think that gets talked about enough. Yeah, no, but it's something that we run across all the time. Yeah, people will call us and say, "Well, this book says here that the premium is this and that. Why are you quoting me a different premium?" And it's just like, it doesn't. I wouldn't say it drives me crazy, but it does. Like, it makes you say, "Man, why do they even waste their time putting that information in there?" I mean, the government should know that that's going to change by the time it gets in people's hands. Right. Oh my goodness, Eric, I want to wrap this up by having you talk about you and your company and your sales training. If there's someone that's listening that's a Medicare beneficiary, how can they get in touch with you and your company if they wanted to work with you? And is there any states that you can't work with anybody in? And part two of that question is if there's any agents that are listening that might want to work with your organization, do you do contracts for agents? And how can they find your sales training? Yeah, so I would say for the seniors that would like more information, would like to get in contact with me, you can always feel free to send me. I don't know if the email is probably one of the easiest ways. I have an email that's, I guess it's pretty simple. It's just Eric, ERIC, at senior-advocates.com. And so it's advocates with an S at the end. So Eric at senior-advocates.com. And I'd be happy to help you out and get you information you're looking for. For the agent population, the Medicare Sales University.net is a great place to start. You go to Medicare Sales University.net and you can get a bunch of information from there and then see how to get involved in the university and basically get more access to me to get you on the right path to making this an amazing career, which is what I've experienced so far and so many others who have stuck it through. It's great. Eric, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on. This was a fantastic conversation, and we'll have to do it again soon. Yeah, I appreciate your time, Christian. Thank you so much again. Hey, the pleasure's all mine. Everybody that's listening at home, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned. We are now doing 3 podcasts a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And coming soon, we're going to have the video as well as the audio up on YouTube. So watch for that. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.